Good evening, and welcome to the strangest commemoration ever. In normal times, the commemoration takes the form of a service in the chapel, followed by a grand dinner in hall to which all the scholars and fellows are invited. Neither of those things can happen at the moment, hence this virtual commemoration. For the service, we bring out the chapel silver, which was given to the college in the 1630s, as you can see in this picture behind me. The books you can see are the actual Bible and prayer book that were on the altar when the present chapel was consecrated in 1677. In the service, we remember our founder and the benefactors who over 400 years have formed the college into what it is today. As the introduction to the service puts it, we give thanks for the good things we enjoy as members of this house. Even in these restricted times, we still have much to be thankful for. In a moment, we will hear the master reading the recitation of benefactors that is at the heart of the service. But first, here is our choir singing a piece written specially by Bethany Thomas, a member of the choir and a third-year music student. It's a setting of the Lord's Prayer.
Each year in mid-November, we remember and celebrate the benefactors whose generosity over nearly 4.5 centuries has made Emma the thriving, successful, beautiful college we are today. From our first donor, Queen Elizabeth I, who granted our charter, through countless individuals, some famous, some not, we have been the grateful recipients of generosity in many forms. As part of our celebration each year, I read from the Master's stall in chapel, the recitation of benefactors. The recitation tells the story of the college, listing many of those who've helped us and how. It's one of our most special occasions, and one we thought, because things are so different this year, we'd like to share with everyone. I'm immensely grateful to Dr. Sarah Bendel, fellow librarian and development director, who's put together some pictures which bring our story to life. So now I'll begin. In the year 1584, Sir Walter Mildmay, formerly of Christ's College, Chancellor of the Exchequer and Privy Councillor to Queen Elizabeth, founded Emmanuel College. For 300 years, the Cambridge Dominicans, friars of the Order of Preachers, had lived and studied on this site, and it was Mildmay's intention to provide ministers of equal learning in the Reformed Church, especially for the work of preaching. In this college, he established a master, 3 fellows, and 4 scholars, and endowed it with an annual revenue, and gave to it some of his own books and plate. For master, he chose Lawrence Chatterton, formerly Fellow of Christ's College, Doctor of Divinity, whose learning and wisdom soon established the reputation of the college, while the breadth of his Puritan sympathies and his moderation in controversy provided a distinguished model for its members. Among the many gifts which helped to secure the new foundation, we owe to Queen Elizabeth the grant of the original charter and of a perpetual annuity from the Exchequer. Contributors to the cost of the Tudor buildings, adapted or constructed by the architect Ralph Simmons and dedicated in 1588, include 2 Lord Mayors of London, Sir Wolston Dixie and Sir John Hart, and a former Master of Clare College, Dr. Edward Leeds. Further benefactions of Sir Wolston ultimately supplied endowment for the Dixie Chair of Ecclesiastical History, established in 1882. In order that the preachers trained in the college might be assured of scope for their ministry, the founder himself, his brother-in-law Sir Francis Walshingham, along with Henry Hastings, 3rd Earl of Huntingdon, Francis Chamberlain, Sir William Rumney and William Neal, endowed it with the patronage of livings in the counties of Huntingdon, Leicester and Somerset. Money or property was given by Mrs. Elizabeth Walters, Mrs. Joyce Frankland, and Edmund English of Westminster for additional fellowships and scholarships, by Robert Johnson, Archdeacon of Leicester, for 4 exhibitions linked with the grammar schools he had recently founded at Oakham and Uppingham, and by Lady Agnes Dixie for a Hebrew and Greek lecturer. Other early benefactors included modest citizens of London and small landowners, of some of whom we know no more than their names. 2 of these, John Barnes and Walter Dunch, gave us in Threadneedle Street in London what proved in time one of our more profitable sources of endowment until it was sold in 1970. The first half of the 17th century was the golden age of the college in the role assigned to it by the founder. 5 senior members were among those responsible for the authorized version of the Bible. 2 were among the English delegates at the Synod of Dort in 1618. 8 sat in the Westminster Assembly. No fewer than 11 became heads of other houses in the university under the Puritan regime. But it would be wrong to think of the college at that time as all of one stamp, whether in learning, politics, or beliefs. William Bedell, as a bishop in Ireland, showed an ecumenical spirit then almost unthought of. Joseph Hall, Bishop of Exeter and of Norwich, was as well known for his satires as for his sermons and meditations. Neither sat easily to Puritan political direction. Jeremiah Horrocks is remembered for his astronomical observations. John Wallis as a precursor of Newton in mathematical discovery. Yet both of these were also devoted theologians and pastors. Of the many divines who emigrated for reasons of conscience to the New England colonies, Emmanuel had educated far more than any other college in Cambridge or in Oxford. Among them was John Harvard, who in 1637, by the bequest of his library and one half of his estate, gave his name forever to the newly founded college at Cambridge in Massachusetts. In the autumn of English Puritanism, Emmanuel was the home of that famous group of philosophical theologians known as the Cambridge Platonists, who resisted the more narrowing tendencies of some of their contemporaries and proclaimed reason as the voice and medium of spiritual knowledge. Their leader was Benjamin Whichcote, fellow, tutor, and benefactor of the college, and afterwards provost of King's College. Meanwhile, our material equipment and resources continued to be enriched. The splendid set of communion vessels of the year 1637 was purchased with money left for that purpose by Dr. William Sancroft, uncle of the Archbishop and third master of the college. Books came to the library from Rachel, Dowager Countess of Bath, a great-granddaughter of the founder, from former fellows and from other eminent Emmanuel men, such as Dr. William Croone, Fellow of the Royal Society, after whom the Croonian Lecture is named. The Lady Grace Mildmay, widow of the founder's son, Sir Anthony, and Francis Ashe, a rich and generous merchant of London, were among those who founded scholarships and exhibitions. Soon after his election as master in the third year of the Restoration, Dr. William Sancroft, future Archbishop of Canterbury, put forward proposals for a new chapel and library. When promoted to the deanery of St. Paul's, he remained actively interested in the scheme, subscribing handsomely to it, along with his two successors, Dr. John Breton and Thomas Holbeach, and others such as Dr. John Sudbury, Dean of Durham, and Sir Robert Gere. From the noble design of Sir Christopher Wren, the present chapel and gallery, with the cloister beneath, took shape during the decade 1668 to 1677. As in 1677, we continue to place on the altar at our commemoration services the prayer book that Dr. Sancroft gave to the college and the 2-volume Bible given by Barnabas Oley. Sancroft, having defrayed the entire cost of all the other woodwork, gave the reredos and altar rails. Dr. Edward Hulse, also of this college, physician in ordinary to King George II and subsequently baronet, added in 1732 the chandelier. And Christopher Neville, sometime former commoner, the altar painting of the Prodigal Son by Amigoni in 1734. The conversion of the former chapel into a library was completed in 1679, so crowning the labours of Dr. Holbeach a year before his death. 15 years later, the library received the splendid gift of Archbishop Sancroft's whole collection of over 5,000 volumes. The Archbishop also in his lifetime promoted the founder's purpose, as did Robert Neve, the Reverend John Wells, and Dr. Breton, by the gift of the advowson of several additional livings. Although under Sancroft and his successor, the churchmanship of the college showed a radical change from the early days, the twin traditions of piety and learning were still upheld. And we are proud to have had as a fellow in the early 18th century, the saintly William Law. But the benefactions of that century have left their most obvious mark in the college buildings. When in 1719, the founder's range, had to be restored and enlarged, Thomas Fane, 6th Earl of Westmoreland and nephew of that 3rd Earl, Charles Fane, who in 1668 had supplied timber for the new chapel, headed a list of subscribers for what we have since then called the Westmoreland Building. Among members who supported him was his brother and successor in the title, Colonel the Honourable John Fane, who fought with distinction under Marlborough and was later to become Chancellor of Oxford University. In that same year, a former fellow, Dr. George Thorpe, Prebendary of Canterbury, dying less than 3 months after he had declined the mastership, left property in Kent for 5 exhibitions and other college purposes, including an annual commemoration of benefactors. At the end of the mastership of Dr. William Richardson in 1775, by means of another generous subscription list, and with James Essex as architect, the present entrance facade of the college replaced the picturesque brick gables and buttresses that we see in Logan's engraving. In the enhanced dignity of this architectural setting, the wide learning and sociable personality of Dr. Richard Farmer, master from 1775 to 1797, attracted distinguished men, both from outside the university and from other colleges within it, not merely to enjoy his society in the parlour, but to pursue new knowledge in the arts and the sciences. As earlier in the century, John Martin had come from London to Emmanuel to become the first professor of botany, so now, towards the end of it, came the archaeologist, Sir William Gell, and the many-sided genius, Thomas Young. In the first half of the 19th century, our numbers remained small, but the loyalty of our members was demonstrated by their contributions towards the restoration of the Westmoreland Building, when in 1811 it was gutted by fire. Improved college finances made possible in the 1820s the building of New Court and the reconstruction of the kitchens, and later the building of the hostel and North Court. But more important than buildings were the reforms marked outwardly by revision of university and college statutes in 1861 and 1882, which brought a gradual diversification of studies and a rise in academic standards. Statutory changes in the 20th century, including those enabling women to become members of the college from 1976, enhanced and strengthened our society. These developments were matched by the number and variety of benefactions. The list of donors since the mid-19th century includes, among masters of the college, Dr. Archdall Gratwick, Dr. Samuel Fear, and William Chawner. Former fellows such as Walter and Charles Alcock, who bequeathed the whole of their possessions, Alfred Rose and Arthur Chapman, and others outside our society, such as Benjamin Christmas Forder, who left us the fruits of a successful career in industry in token of his esteem for the education given in this place. Some have made provision for new facilities, others for the increase of those already existing. Thus, in 1907, the Reverend Thomas Hewitt established a fund for the building of a new library. The gradual expansion of the library, since it was moved to its present building in 1930, owes much to so many that we can here mention only the fund endowed for its benefit by Thomas Duncanson, the bequest of Samuel Lowry Porter, a Lord of Appeal and former honorary fellow of the college, which, together with the liberality of the Honourable Society of the Inner Temple, helped to equip it so well for the study of law, the gift by Graham Watson of a magnificent collection of colour plate books and contemporary cases in which to house them, and the benefactions by Peter Rickard and others towards the extension and refurbishment of the building in 2010. Many members and others contributed generously in the late 1950s to allow us to build South Court and to create other sets of rooms in college. Members and friends of the college enabled the quatercentenary of our foundation to be marked by the purchase of the fine accommodation provided by Park Terrace under the far-sighted mastership of Professor Derek Brewer. The Queen's Building, which was opened by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II in 1995, is another lasting reminder of generosity to the college in the late 20th century. In the current century, we give thanks to Eva Maria Lamb and others who made possible the restoration of the chapel in 2004, and to those of the current generation who are creating facilities to enrich our community for the future. The college has received many new benefactions for scholarships, exhibitions, and prizes. Some have been endowed to develop links with particular parts of the world, and we mention especially the bequest by Dr. Herschel Smith to strengthen our connections with New England. Others, such as those endowed by Beatrice Braithwaite Batty, Alfred Baker Welford, and Arthur Thompson, are for the encouragement of particular subjects of study, while those of Matthew and Betsy Langley are examples of ones that may be used for any subject. Some have been endowed with the additional purpose of keeping alive the memory of former members whose early deaths frustrated the promise they had already shown. Other gifts and bequests have been made to further studies in particular subjects, and we remember among them those by Colonel Frank Windsor for medicine and by Joseph Edward Firth Whitaker for history. Many still living continue through their generosity to protect, enrich, and enlarge our lives. For all these are benefactors, and for others too many to name, we now give thanks to Almighty God, remembering with them in our tribute those members of the college who gave their lives for their country in war. Those who have enriched our university by the honor that they have brought to it, by their learning, leadership, service, or uneventful constancy in public or private life. The faithful service of many generations of college staff, and the whole company of those who, by their life and labors, have enriched this house and made full the lot of those who have studied here. May God be with us, as he was with our fathers, and make us worthy of our inheritance.
We hope you enjoy the cake. These times are difficult, as we all know, but we will get through them. We look forward to the time when we will be able to gather in large numbers to eat and drink together in an unrestricted way. Thank you.